Hello, I'm David DeCosmo. Welcome to Preview. Preview is our public affairs program here on Electric City Television. And today we're happy to welcome Pittston Mayor Mike Lombardo as our guest with another great event happening in the city of Pittston. And Mike, this, of course, welcome back.
Thank you. This
is your St. Pat's Parade, which is the newest of the St. Patrick's parades in our area. I think this is what, your fourth or fifth?
Seventh.
Seventh
yeah,
already.
This will be our seventh. Yeah, it's seventh annual, March 7th, 2000. It starts at noon. And as you referenced, us new in the parade lineup regionally with, St. Pat's parades, one of the things that we tried to do is look at the region, and the committee, I think, has done a good job looking at us sort of participating in the backdrop of the other two parades, the big one up in here in Scranton and the very nice and growing one in Wilkes-Barre, and create a circumstance where we're sort of first out of the blocks, but we're not competing with either of those parades.
And that's a smart move for a number of reasons. Obviously, some of the participants in the parade are called upon by those same communities,
right?
And they can't be in two places at the same time. So you've got to really kind of make sure you schedule them so that they can make all of the parades that are possible. What is the line of march? What is your route that you use in the city of Pittston?
So we use the route that we pretty typically use for the other parades. The oldest of the parades being the Tomato Festival Parade, which our chairperson, one of our co-chairs, Sarah Donahue, is equally involved in. It starts out on the south end of town at the forks of the road, where the Duncan and the Sunoco are, and it essentially kicks off and runs down to Main Street, and then right before the Fort Jenkins Bridge, makes a left and comes back onto the boulevard, and then it
onto Kennedy Boulevard.
On Kennedy Boulevard, right. Yes, and then it ends down on the boulevard. So it's a nice parade route. The event usually runs. We shut down Main Street at about 10 a.m. in order to make all the final arrangements, and the bridges close at 11:30, and then pretty much about 2 p.m. The parade is over. Sarah, who couldn't join us today, tells me that there are 100 entries, 4 or so pipe and drum bands. There's always step dancing groups. There's local animal support shelters, school groups, business groups, lots of music, civic groups, elected officials. So it's really a great day to celebrate, I think, the community and to celebrate the Northeast. We get great support from the Scranton contingent that comes down and participates every year. So it's really a nice way to kick off and warm everybody up. And as much as we can celebrate St. Patrick's Day, the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and of course, ironically, none of the St. Patrick's parades are actually on St. Patrick's Day. There are too many other activities for people to be involved in. Then, when I stop to think about it, and you widen your geographic scope just a little bit, and you get down toward Carbon County and up in Monroe County, I think you could pretty much fill up March with St. Patrick's marches, St. Patrick's parades here and there. And they do draw tremendous crowds. Obviously, Scranton's is one of the biggest in the nation. Now, to that end, yours being the newest has still grown pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's growing pretty quickly, and I think, given our size and, sort of our stature in the mix, I think it's where it needs to be. Certainly Scranton is the, is an iconic parade.
Yeah.
That we celebrate, and as a matter, there's a little other P city that's short of us, that's south of us, I think Philadelphia or something, that tries to compete with Scranton, but they don't really do a great job at that, and the Scranton Parade is really awesome. But, I like to think that, and our committee likes to think that our parade serves a purpose, and it sort of rounds out and begins the year events for us, and it's a great way to start the year, and then, subsequent to the St. Patrick's Day parade, which, to call it a parade, really, it sells it short, because actually we start the function February 29th with what I think is this year our third annual Little Miss and Little Miss Mr. Leprechaun contest, which occurs at the library. So there were a bunch of events that are layered in around it, and then On that same day, the 5th annual pub crawl occurs. That starts at 5:30 p.m. It kicks off at the Knights of Columbus, which is 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Then it goes to Tomato Bar and Bistro, 6:45 to 7:45, and then 8 to 9 p.m. the Red Mill. And then we also have a parade mass that occurs the day of the parade at 9 a.m. at St. John the Evangelist, and it will be celebrated this year by Father Elston. We also have the Leprechaun Loop, and that's in its 4th year, and that occurs before the race.
Is that a run?
It's a run. It's a 1-mile race. Registration at 9:30 a.m. at the YMCA. It's a great, fun 1-mile dash. So for all of us that really don't want to jump up to 5K, it's a great event. And then all of those things are culminated by the parade, which again, as I said, this year is March 7th at 2. Starts off at the Forks of the Road. It's our 7th annual. So you see there's a full slate of activity here. And I want to take this opportunity to, acknowledge the committee. Sarah Donahue and that committee have done just an incredible job growing this parade from its first event 7 years ago to now. And they've worked really hard on getting each and every year to have more people that are supportive of it and more people that participate in it. Mike McFarland is also a co-chair who does a great job. So I can't say enough about that committee. And as we do events in the city, it's because of strong committees like that we're able to pull off what I would consider, A+ signature events. And
Sure.
This parade is certainly one of those.
Sure, and you alluded to the fact that this parade kicks off the year with where in Pittston there are more and more, it seems there are more and more events all the time. I want to touch on some of those too, even though we're focusing on the St. Patrick's Parade. But before I even do that, when I think of the city of Pittston, I immediately think of an Italian heritage. Now part of that may be because of your great success of the Pittston Tomato Festival. I don't really know, but in reality, you've got quite a mix there, and the Irish heritage is also a big part of it.
Yeah, I think the Irish heritage is equally as strong, and we certainly have diverse other groups that have moved in. And each year we go along, it's just like every place else here. What we look like changes a little bit in terms of our ethnic origin, and that's a good thing. But the Irish population is equally as strong as the Italian population, and I think it's always sort of been a little misrepresented. It's funny because I think I mentioned to you before we went on, I'm half Italian and half Irish, so I can completely appreciate that mix. But it's great, and I think at the end of the day, it is, regardless whether you're from that Italian heritage or the Irish heritage or one of the others, we have a very strong Lithuanian population. And we recognize Lithuanian Independence Day, and that will be coming up soon, and we'll be celebrating that. But I think the important point is, with this parade and those events that we do that are ethnically centric, is it's not really forgetting about, look, we're all Americans,
right.
But where we came from is very important because I think it contributes to who we are and how we've gotten here. So it's nice to celebrate those things, just like it's nice to be proud Pittstonians and proud Pennsylvanians. But it's about not forgetting. So that's why I really like these events. And we've lost through the years a lot of those niche little cultural. You come through places like Pittston and Wilkes-Barre and Scranton and Hazleton. You used to have all these little clubs that were ethnic centric.
Yes, and
even the churches.
Yeah, the club, Lithuanian club. I think you still have one of those.
We still have a Lithuanian club. We still have one Italian American club. Actually, we have two now because there's a new one in Pittston Township. But you had a bunch of those because within each of those groups, there's subcategories. Within the Italian groups, and the churches are the same way. So I think it's really important to keep focus on that and remember where we came from and remember some of those, I think, great ethnic qualities. And for me, that's what this parade is about. And when we celebrate on the other end, the Italian heritage, it's the same thing. It's about those core values that define who those ethnic groups were.
And all of those groups use this as rationale for coming together.
I agree. Yeah, and it's a great opportunity to come together, and there are lots of people of Irish descent and of non-Irish descent that work very, very hard to make sure that this parade is successful. And there have been a couple years where we've had weather challenges, and everybody stepped up to do their part. I think 2 years back, it was really dicey, and in a matter of no time, we had everything cleared. But we did that by having everybody get in the boat and row the boat in the same direction, and that's what I like. I mean, the whole idea of community. We are really fortunate in northeastern Pennsylvania. If you go other places, you don't see that. You have just people that are, I say this all the time, this sort of, I'm not from here, I just live here attitude. But we still here in Northeast PA have this lineage of people that are from here and are proud to be from here and care about being here. And if you get transplants that come here and you talk to them 6 or 7 months after they've been here, that is one of the first things they will point out to you, and they will tell you how great that is. So, we should be very proud, and we should consider ourselves fortunate that we've been able to hold on to that.
And while you do bring people from within the city together for an event like the St. Patrick's Parade, nonetheless, it is not city exclusive. You pull in from a wide area.
Yeah, like all of our events. I mean, none of our events are meant to be, just serve the population of the city. It's just an unrealistic and it's an unproductive thought. We want to expand, and again, I'll say kudos to this committee, because if you keep every year saying, well, okay, the first year was maybe a 10-mile radius or a 12-mile radius, so we pull Scranton in. Every year that radius of who comes and participates gets bigger, and that's how the parade grows, and that's how not only the people on the street in the parade, but the people that are on the sidewalks, celebrating this event. It's how it expands, and we need to be that. We need to be regional, and we need to recognize that our events are not events that are carved out just to serve our constituents that live in the city. There's a greater population here that we serve.
Well, one of the real assets, one of the real neat things about people coming into the city of Pittston for this event or any other is the fact that they can see a downtown that, from an aesthetic point of view, has been reborn. It was not too many years back. You certainly look 10, 15 years ago when a lot of empty storefronts and the sidewalks were beginning to be in need. And fortunately, the city has been able to really do a change, and it's you fixed up the downtown beautifully, and I believe that expansion continues. The improvements continue.
Yeah, that expansion, for me, it's been a 22-year process, and it will probably be 22 or 30 more to take us where I believe that we need to go, and where the other electeds that have served, because I've certainly not been the only mayor. I point out Joe Keating and Mayor Klush, who both have served in that 22 tenure. And honestly, prior to me, Tom Walsh, who was a good mayor and a good guy. And so that revitalization process is a long, steady process. It's not a 100-meter sprint. It's a marathon. Mm-hmm. So you've got to pace yourself and move through it. And I think that we've made each year great strides. And so my ulterior motive, one of the things that I like about these events is that we get to show off.
It becomes a showcase.
Right. Yeah. And it becomes a way to have people that might necessarily not come downtown for no other reason than they're not exposed to it. They don't have a reason, or it's not sort of in their foraging pattern. They come downtown now and they come to the parade, for instance, this parade, and they see something that they like, and they'll come back. So in a lot of ways, these events are magnets that draw people into the city, and hopefully I'm confident, not hopefully, that once we get you here, we can get you to come back for other things, whether it be another event like the Art Walks, or the Tomato Festival, or the Trick or Treat on Main Street, or the Toy Truck Parade that we do.
Yeah, these are some of the things that
Paint Pittston Pink. I mean, they're all, countless great events, but those events, they all interrelate. None of these things stand alone, and you'll see that, a lot of the people that serve on these committees have overlap functions.
Yeah.
Sarah's a prime example of one. You know, if you put the committees after her name, well, it would look like this sheet. So, you know, we rely on that consistency. And I think that the other thing that happens in doing that is that it's our own sort of internal quality control of making sure that, you know, we communicate and we have good events, because we don't want to just have an event to have an event. We want to have a great event.
Well, you've got something almost every month between holidays that you recognize, or you do you do an art walk as well, I believe now?
Yeah, we do 4 art walks, and then we'll mix in a couple other events that are art related, which takes us to about 6. So January is kind of a quiet month for us. You know, it's so weather unpredictable.
Yeah.
Except we've had a great one this year.
Yeah.
But we usually take a break and I think let everybody regroup and catch their breath. February, we have some events that relate to this parade. But I can tell you this, while I say we take a break, we take a break from events. We don't take a break from the planning of the events. And the day after this event ends, that committee is already thinking about, okay, when are we going to have our first debrief meeting and start? So, you know, it's a year-long process. And then probably like November is sort of a quiet month for us. We're ramping up to the holidays, but we do really have a really nice holiday function that it's called the Toy Truck Parade now that Sarah was actually...
You mentioned that, but I'm not really familiar with it. The
yes,
Toy Truck Parade?
So we've partnered with Froggy 101 and a couple other media partners, and we do this thing that's called the Toy Truck Parade. And the idea is that you come in a truck and you bring a toy in the truck. And it's a way for us to collect. So this year we recognized one of our local downtown businesses who had set up a foundation for a daughter they had lost, Reba and Turk Kolbach. And we so far exceeded our expectations that we were able to go out and distribute toys to other groups that needed them. And even up to 2 or 3 days before Christmas, we were actually out, some of us personally, we heard stories and we were out personally delivering toys. So that's a great event. You know, I think the Tomato Festival, we don't need to talk about that. We'll do that when I'm on this show shortly again. It gets here faster than we know. So, you know, our months are pretty full. You know, April is sort of a recoup, catch our breath month, but then we enter into the high, you know, pace phase of May through, you know, October, where we're filled with events. I'll let you in on some secrets. We're working on a couple other events. You know, we're talking about having a jazz and blues festival at some point, and we're finishing, now that we finished the amphitheater up on the hill behind the library, and, you know, did that, and we're finishing the stage next to the festival. We have multiple venues where we can run acts. So, you know, we're working on those things, but so, you know, it's a full year of events, and that's why this event is always, it's great. I think it's, you know, it's the kickoff. We're coming out of the winter, you know, regardless of what the weather deals to us, we manage it and we respond, and we always get great support. And like I said, the committee works really hard. I can't say enough about, you know, what they do. As you see,
well, there's so much planning involved, because first of all, you've got to recruit those marching organizations that are going to come, and although you don't want to compete with Scranton or with Wilkes-Barre, there are other communities that are still asking for those groups to come. So there's always competition along the line. So you've got to arrange those in advance. And then one of the things that we always talk about in parades, but it's something worth talking about, is where do you put band 1, where do you put band 2?
Sure.
Where do you have this particular marching group? And those are not easy decisions.
No, parade lineup is a very difficult decision, because it really makes or breaks, you know, the flow of the parade. If you stack all the music together, they're really wrestling with one another in terms of sound. So I think you have to do that, and then there's that pageantry piece of it with, you know, the vehicles that come that are actually rise to a level of what I would call a float, as opposed to being a decorated vehicle. So, you know, you want to get a good balance there. So there's lots of work. I mean, it's not a simple task. And I think, you know, there are some people that think that, okay, you did it the first year and you carve out sort of this template that becomes, okay, now it's plug and play. You just fill things in. But yeah, that works if you want to be complacent and you don't want to get better every year. But this committee is motivated, and they want to get better every year. So they're always rolling out some new piece to make it better. And, they take notes and they pay attention and they say, okay, maybe we were too close with the pipe and drum 1 and pipe and drum 2. So they're always fixing to make sure that you have that, that inherent piece of quality control that makes it better. Because that's what makes people come back, the viewers and the participants.
Yeah.
Because neither of those groups want to just show up.
And your line of march is, what, about 2 hours roughly?
It's about 2 hours, yeah. It takes about 2 hours, and, sometimes the parade is led by politicians that tend to shake too many hands and slow the pace down. But we're all.
Are you in the first car?
I'm in. I always try to walk. It's the beginning of my exercise routine for the year. So I've never been in a car, and I hope to, as long as I can do it, stay out of the car. I don't use a car for any of the vehicles we're in. I like to walk because you do get to see a lot of people, and you get to interact with more people that are in the parade, and I love that part.
You also have something, and I know Scranton does this as well, but because of the fact you have a couple different events, you have the Pittston Pink, which is a fight cancer effort that you put on, but your Main Street dividing line tends to change colors a lot during the year.
And we get these at different spaces on the Main Street. We'll either have the pink logo or a tomato or the shamrock. So, which is really an interesting, I'll tell you a little side story. That was never planned. And I think the first year that we did the line for the St. Pat's Parade.
You painted the green line for that.
We painted the green line. We had a paint malfunction. So we had this glop of paint in the middle of the street, and the guys that were doing the work for us were just great and gracious, and they came up with a quick strategy, and they finished the circle out, and then they inserted a shamrock in it. And we liked that so much that from the error was born this new tradition. And so you'll see the tomato on the street, you'll see the the Paint Pittston Pink logo on the street. You'll see the shamrocks on the street, and that's fun and it's great. Mayo Striping does that a lot for us, and they come down and they do that with pageantry. So everything, they usually have a leprechaun.
Yeah, that's an event.
Running. It's an event unto itself. Yeah. I don't even have that on the sheet, but the line painting is an event all unto itself, and I think it's cool, and I think people look forward to that piece of it. And we have banners that we put up. That are the Irish flags that line Main Street, similar to what Scranton does, to celebrate that piece.
Let me ask you this: the parade comes along, and the line of march has everyone's attention, and there's some vendors that come along with it as well. How does the parade affect your everyday business place?
Well, you know what? We are really fortunate to have our businesses downtown. Are not just businesses downtown, they're partners. So they are aware of these things. And you could easily say, well, it causes discomfort because obviously you're altering the ebb and flow of traffic for a big chunk of time. But our businesses not only write checks in support of the event, but they also know it on their calendar. So like some of our banks actually won't open the branch that day. Okay. And up front, I'll always apologize. We always create there is a little bit of inconvenience that's associated with this celebration, like there is with our other ones, and I will apologize out of the hop for that, but I think it's worth it enough that sacrifice.
Well, does it bring people back to town?
It brings people back to town, and post the parade, obviously the eating establishments, and then some of the clubs, the bars at night will benefit from the traffic. So it's a good event, and you can measure it, and I would like to think that, each of the events brings their piece, and it's a trade-off. So while you may lose a little bit, you gain a little bit. And at the end of the day, if there's some magic ledger out there, I think you would see that you're ahead of the game. But I have to tell you, we have a great cadre of businesses downtown that just buy into what we're doing, and we've gotten a lot better at communicating better with them, so that they're not taken off guard. Because one of the other events that I forgot is we have an event that is a library fundraising event called Book It Through Pittston, which is another run. So we essentially have 3 major runs that occur through the city. And actually this year, we're adding the start of a 4th run that actually is really cool. It's a run through sort of this end of Northeast PA. It starts in Pittston City and ends on Public Square in Wilkes-Barre. It's a 10-mile run that this year will be its kickoff year. And it's called Run the Valley. And it's up on the site. So it's
another brand
fun.
new event.
Another brand new event. But, like I said, getting back, our businesses are extremely supportive. And like I said, it's key that this group, the committee that puts this together is good about communicating with them. So they're aware of this schedule. They're aware of, the window of disruption, and we work through it.
Well, this year's Pittston St. Patrick's Parade, again, the date is the 10th?
7th.
The 7th.
Yeah, March 7th.
7th of March. Visitors would be advised to come early.
I would try to get there, no later than 10 a.m. You can find tons of places to park that are off the main street. The upper lot where we hold the festival, the library area, and our side streets. And, we're pretty accommodating and welcoming in terms of working through the parking logistics. And I think people have it down. And if you're confused, follow the crowd.
Big parade. Again, you mentioned the participants in terms of numbers. You have several.
Yeah, we have about 100 entries, 4 pipe and band groups, a bunch of other music. We have live music that comes through the band. We have various mascots. The Penguins mascot, the Rail Riders mascot has shown up periodically. Sure. I'm not certain on which 2 or
they're
both
always
of them.
Popular for the kids, though.
Right.
That's
and we try to work, and I think that's a great point, David. Is that we think that this is a very family-centered event. And we try to push and continue to cultivate it that way.
Well, this is one of a number of events in the city of Pittston. You can be proud of Mike. I thank you for substituting for Sarah Donahue today, who normally represents the Pittston St. Patrick's Parade, but unfortunately was feeling ill. So let's hope for a good weather and a great parade, and I thank you for visiting us once again. I'm David DeCosmo for Preview on Electric City Television. Until we see you again next week, here's hoping all your news is good.